Dax, we have to show Melissa.
Yes, hello everyone.
All right, ma'am, we're live.
Okay.
All right.
Yes. Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us on our third Migration Outlook webinar. So we have viewers from different parts of the world like Hong Kong, Macau, mainland China, Japan, Thailand, Bangladesh, Kuwait, UAE, Canada, Belgium, Italy, and Germany. And of course, we have viewers from different parts of the Philippines. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whichever is appropriate for your time zone. I am Melissa Diaz, an assistant professor from the Department of Psychology in Ateneo de Manila University. I am also a volunteer psychologist at Ugat Foundation. I am co-moderating this webinar along with Dr. Marla Aziz. The Migration Outlook webinar series is brought to you by the University of Hong Kong and the Scalabrini Migration Center, and in cooperation with the Episcopal Commission for the Pastoral Care of Migrants and Itinerant People. This series provides OFWs and their families a platform to share their experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic while taking into account insights from researchers and practitioners. The goal is to provide support to OFWs and their families to help them overcome challenges due to the crisis. The Migration Outlook webinar series is supported by the University of Hong Kong's Knowledge Exchange Initiative, which aims to share knowledge and research-based evidence to the public and to translate research-based knowledge to create impact on different communities. In the first webinar, we heard stories from children of OFWs in the time of COVID-19. In the second webinar, we listened to OFW couples share their experiences during these difficult times. We hope you enjoyed listening to their sharing, and we hope you learned from our speakers. Our webinar for today is entitled After Repatriation, Hanap-buhay, pag-asa. The direct translation in Filipino is jobs and looking for hope. This is clearly an important topic to discuss, considering that there have been 56,000 repatriates as of June of this year, with thousands more awaiting to come back home. We learned from the past webinars and from the news that many of the repatriated OFWs were unprepared financially. There are those who have no savings, those who were not paid their salaries, and there are those who have debts to pay. One of the main solutions to address these problems is to find alternative jobs and economic opportunities, which we will discuss this afternoon. Joining us are two former OFWs who are back in the Philippines and two partners of OFWs. They will share the avenues they took to earn a living during the pandemic. We also have three resource speakers who will share insights on employment prospects. We have one from the academy, another from the private sector, and lastly from government. Like in the previous webinars, we will be using a combination of Filipino and English languages. For our viewers who are unable to understand Filipino, we will provide summaries in English for statements made in Filipino. During this 1.5-hour webinar, we will allot 15 minutes for an open forum. We encourage you to write your questions in the comment section of this video. We will try to ask your questions to our speakers later. I will now introduce my colleague, Dr. Marla Aziz, who will be moderating the next part of today's webinar. Dr. Marla Aziz is the Executive Director of the Scalabrini Migration Center. She has authored countless of papers on migration, including studies about youth employment and migration, and impact of migration on families and children's health and well-being. Good afternoon, Doc Marla.
Hello, Melissa. Maraming salamat. Thanks very much for the introduction and for introducing our topic this afternoon. So actually, I have an update because since the last time that we reported to you the number of repatriated OFWs, the number has increased since then. The latest figures from the Office of the Undersecretary of Migrant Workers Affairs put the number of repatriated OFWs as of July 13 to 80,726 OFWs, of whom 42,600 42,674 are land-based and 38,042 are sea-based workers. I think the figure is quite interesting because up until early July, there were actually more sea-based than land-based workers who were repatriated. And actually in the days and weeks to come, we are expecting more land-based workers who will be returning to the Philippines. So we don't really have a lot of information about what happens to the repatriated OFWs once they are back here in the Philippines, because what we have so far in terms of data are just numbers. No? Luckily, the Scalabrini Migration Center, in cooperation with AOS Manila and the Negros Integrated Marine Services Incorporated, we were able to field a survey of repatriated workers while they were on quarantine. So we have some data from 285 repatriated OFWs, and we did the survey in the third week, in the last week of April up until the third week of May 2020. What is very interesting to note from the data is that close to half of our repatriated OFW of our repatriated OFWs were the only or sole earners of their families and households. And as Melissa has also mentioned earlier, actually the primary reason for their repatriation was that for more than a little half of the repatriated OFWs actually were displaced. No? That is, they lost their jobs. They lost the jobs that they held overseas. And incidentally, about 20%, 21% returned home because it coincided with the end of their contract. The data also confirmed that for more than half, some 67% said and admitted that they had no savings at all. Because, of course, the displacement came at a time when they least expected. And as you can also see from the data, only a very few proportion, like 6.4%, said that they had enough savings and they could actually think of returning home for good. We also had a question on what they plan to do in the next 3 months. No? So we were just looking at the short window right after repatriation, and what we're seeing there is that for about 1/5 of the respondents, 21.5% admitted that they did not have any idea of what they were going to do. 17.2% said that they plan to start a small business, and 16% each said that they plan to spend time with their families. Another 16% said that they would look for local employment, and another 16% said that they would look for overseas employment. I found these figures rather interesting because in the past, when we would have cases of repatriated OFWs, there's a tendency for them not to really consider local employment. And so during this time of the pandemic, it seems that there's about an equal proportion of OFWs who are thinking both of overseas employment as well as local employment prospects. Turning to the next slide, we have some indications of the kind of resources that they have in terms of maybe what we would call social protection. So the good news is that a majority of the repatriated OFWs are OWA members, but a lower proportion, like about 58.2%, are SSS members, and a very, very low proportion of 11.6% are union members. According to them, we asked them on what would be the kind of assistance that they would need, and this is based on multiple responses. So the first one up there is the need for capital so that they can establish a business. Then another 35.5% said that they would need referrals so that they could look for work overseas again. And some 29% said that they would need referrals for local employment. What we have also there is that about a quarter of our respondents saying that they needed some kind of training training so they could start a business, and they would also be interested in skills training. And I would just like to flash um, very quickly some opportunities that are available for training, and these are training programs that can be accessed from TESDA. I'll just show this to you very briefly and would suggest to all our viewers, particularly to our repatriated OFWs, to check out the website of the technical education for skills development and authority, no, because they have a very specific program for returning OFWs. So when we checked out the details, it's quite easy to access that application, and you can have access to more than 50 training programs for free. So please check it out later on. Um, what we would also have, no, we are very privileged that this afternoon, as mentioned earlier by Melissa, we have sharers from repatriated OFWs and also OFW family members in different migration situations who would also be a source of insights on the realities that they are facing now. We have a full house, so I will proceed very quickly to introduce each one of them. So for the first part of the conversation, we will be having this conversation with OFWs and their family members. First, I'd like to introduce Ms. Pamela Alcantara. Pam. So Pam used to work as a casino staff in Dream Cruises. She was one of the first batches of cruise ship personnel who was repatriated to the Philippines in February 2020. Two of our sharers are wives of overseas Filipino workers. I hope both of them are present now. First, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Arlene Rosales. Arlene, is Arlene up? Okay. Hello, Arlene. Arlene is from Navotas, Metro Manila. Her husband, Ray, works as a control room and electronic technician at King Fahd Specialist Hospital in Dammam, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So Arlene is a preschool teacher and is active in church as a lay coordinator of the Diocese of Caloocan Migrants Ministry. And during this lockdown, Arlene started an online business to augment the family's income. I'd also like to welcome Miss Rebecca Dumipig, or Rebby. Okay, hi. So Rebby has joined us now. Rebby is the better half of Nilo, who has been working as a seafarer for many years. Her husband was prevented from returning to work because of the quarantine and travel restrictions. A few years ago, Rebby actually started a business of making and selling native bags made by craftspeople in Negros Occidental. Our fourth sharer, you won't be able to see her. She won't be able to join us at the moment, but she is going to. She shared with us a video clip of her business. Our fourth sharer is Miss Ellen Ilecanal. She's a former OFW turned business baker turned bakery owner. Ellen is joining us via a video clip that we requested from her. Ellen worked in Hong Kong and Singapore for more than 20 years. She's an example of an OFW who decided to return home with a plan to start a bakery business and took various steps to prepare for her homecoming. Hers, thus, is an example of planned return, which is unlike the unplanned return which characterized most of our repatriated OFWs under this pandemic. So I think, first of all, let me start the conversation going with Pam. No? Kay Pam muna tayo sa kwento ni Pam. So Pam,
Yes,
how are
ma'am.
you?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Fine.
Yes. Good afternoon. Yes. Can you tell us about your experience of working on a cruise ship? How long have you been working on the cruise ship? And what was your experience like before COVID-19?
Well, I've been working on a cruise ship for 10 years now. And for me, working in an enclosed environment, it's really tough. You have to have
Mm,
a strong mindset, and a strong heart to be able to cope with the changes, missing your family, and the struggles
mm,
on working schedules and meeting people, especially in gambling world. So for me, it's
mhm.
exciting. It's hard, but it's exciting, and the compensation is good.
Okay. So so you said you were working for the company for 10 years already. What were
Yes.
your plans then? Did you have like some idea of when you will come home for good or maybe look for another job elsewhere? What were your thoughts before the COVID-19 intervened?
Well, actually, I'm more like I didn't really prepare for anything because at that time I was thinking my work will never stop. Like if I will
Mm-hmm.
just have vacation for 2 months and then come back. So I did try to plan the future. I told myself that maybe another 10 more years or five to
Mm.
10 more years I will
Okay.
stop. I will try to put aside the money to start a small business. But I didn't expect this thing to happen so quickly. So the money
Mhm.
that I was able to save, I actually spend it all during this pandemic.
Okay, okay. When did you find out that your work was going to stop, and how was the news relayed to you?
Well, actually, we were cruising around Vietnam January this year, and
Mm-hmm.
then the pandemic started already in China, and then we were not able to sail for a month. We stopped sailing for a month. We stayed in the port, not really port, but in the Sea of Hong Kong because we
Okay.
cannot dock. We are not able to. The government didn't allow us to dock on the port, so we stayed on the sea for 1 month, and
Mm-hmm.
then they had this swab test for COVID and everything, so that the company can repatriate us as soon as possible. But we are having problems in other ports in other countries because
Mm-hmm.
they're not allowing our company to repatriate us from their port going to Philippines. So we
Mm-hmm.
stayed again another half a month. Then the company decided that we should go to the Philippines, and then we at last February 29 our ship docked in Pier 15, so they were able to repatriate all the Filipino crews.
Okay, all right. Can you give us an idea of how many Filipinos were on the same cruise ship? Mga ilan
Uh,
kayo? How many of you were repatriated to the
I'm not
Philippines?
quite sure about the numbers, the
Mhm.
specific numbers, but I heard it's around 300 at
Around
that time.
300. Okay. So you were sailing, you were just staying there on board the ship. What thoughts came to your mind? No? And then you knew already at the time that, work was going to stop.
The first 1 or 2 weeks you enjoyed the stay because you're not working, you had a lot of
Okay.
rest,
You
but
had
after
rest.
that you become restless because you're thinking what will happen to us, where are we going to see our family, is there really a plan for us to be repatriated soon, because
Mhm.
they are keeping us informed every time about the
Mhm.
situation, but you cannot blame them, you cannot question them because it's really not the company's problem, it's about the ports around the
Yeah, yeah.
countries we sailed in.
Mhm.
So they just assured us that for the meantime you stay here, the food is free, you will still have your salary, but we
Mhm.
cannot guarantee when
Mm.
will you're gonna go home. And then
Mhm.
after the news came that we will be repatriated, the company really told us that there's no certain time and date that you will
Mhm.
be able to go back.
Yeah.
The first
Mm.
time they told us it's about after 3 months, but the pandemic is going, well, it's spreading from other countries to countries. So they gave us a letter again that it might be moved
Mm.
for
Mhm.
another quarter again. And then
Mhm.
now, they gave us tentative sign-ons, but there's no guarantee that we're gonna be able to go back again.
Okay.
But the company assured us that they are doing everything so that all of us may be able to sign on again.
I see. Okay. So, what are your plans now? I mean, are you just waiting for the company's sign on to materialize, or what have you been thinking about, and what have you been doing since the time that you actually rejoined your family?
Okay. The first month I didn't do anything actually. I was just
The rest?
resting and all. And then
Yeah.
I started to get worried
Mm-hmm.
when May arrived. So I started doing this
Ah,
TESDA
okay.
course. So
Actually, you availed of some
yeah,
TESDA
yeah.
program.
Two courses for TESDA. The other one is
All
how
right.
to manage my finances, and the other one is how to start a small business. I started with
Okay.
that. So I know I don't have capital, so I entered into this freelance agent thing. So
Mm-hmm.
like I'm selling face masks and everything in bulk
Okay.
orders. So
Yes.
I'm into this company now that I'm looking for hospitals or private clinics that
Okay.
that they need this certain mask. So I
Mm-hmm.
will talk to the other company to
All
accommodate and
right.
everything, and then my payments will be on commission basis.
All right. Okay.
I'm actually working on it until now, but the I had a bad experience from the past because I closed the deal for one of
Mm-hmm.
my clients. Then I didn't get any commissions from that, so it's like I'm still into this, but I'm more like finding hospitals that need this kind of um,
Okay.
mass items, and then I will refer them to
Mm-hmm.
company that can accommodate their needs,
Mm-hmm.
something like
So
that.
you were actually able to find some option, no, to
Yes.
you were able to have some income generating activity. What about plans maybe for the next 6 months or a year from now? Any thoughts on that? And what kind of assistance would you need, if any, from our government, any of our government agencies?
Actually, I applied for assistance, but until now, unfortunately, until now, I haven't received any from the
Mm.
government. But
Oh,
I'm still waiting. I'm still
all right.
waiting. So for now, my plan is if I get my commission on this, I will
Mm.
try not to go back to
Okay.
doing this
Okay.
with Silan base because
Mm.
I'm missing too much pro I'm missing too much of my time for my son. So I was
All
planning that
right.
if I get my commission, I'll start a small business. Then I will try to have part-time jobs, but not
Okay.
full-time.
All right.
So I have income.
Okay. So, but are you also open to working abroad again, or more or less you're thinking of staying back home and trying to find other means?
For now, I'm open to anything
Any?
that comes immediately,
Okay.
right? So if
All right.
they give me sign on, I will go back. If
Okay.
a job opening in abroad, and then I will be hired, I will. But for now, my priority is really to earn money quick.
Okay. Thanks very much, ma'am. Maybe
Thank
one
you.
very quick question about the assistance. Are you
Mm.
referring to the Dole ACAP assistance that you
Actually,
applied for?
yes, ma'am. I applied last May 7, and until
Okay.
now, I haven't received any. Then the other day, they gave me an email that I should
Mm-hmm.
again send my
Mm-hmm.
passport copy and other
Yeah.
things. But I'm trying to reach their website, but
Yeah.
every time I try to send them an email, it will
Mhm.
bounce back.
Okay.
And
Yes.
then I also tried the unemployment assistance for
Okay.
SSS, which you will need a dole certificate. So
Mm-hmm.
you are not allowed to apply it
Okay.
physically
Yes.
in their office. So I tried it online, but until now I haven't received any
Yes.
reply yet.
The Department of Labor and Employment has admitted that there are some pending applications that have been approved, but they have yet to provide the assistance for. So maybe you are in that batch, and hopefully it will come very soon.
I
Thank you
hope
very
so.
much.
Thank you,
Yes,
ma'am.
thank you. So we'll go back to you again later. So
Thank
for
you.
now, maybe let me check with Arlene. Arlene. Can you join us now? Yes. So, Arlene, hello again. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and your husband's work in Saudi Arabia?
Yes, I'm Arlene from Caloocan, overall lay coordinator of National Migrant Ministry of Diocese of
Ay,
Caloocan,
Caloocan. Okay.
and I already married na 21 years with two children. Ang pinaka-eldest ko po ay college na, and the youngest one
Mm-hmm.
is grade 1. And
Mm-hmm.
my husband worked at King Fahad Hospital as maintenance technician. Ah, yung after ng pag-married na rin po namin is, actually binata pa po siya, nag-aano na siya, nasa ibang bansa na. So, pabalik-balik lang po siya
Okay.
rito, hangga't nung kami kinasal. So, formerly po kasi 2 years ang bakasyon niya, pero by this time, nagiging yearly na lang. So, yun
Mm-hmm.
po. Then, I'm also active in church. Then, I'm
Mm-hmm.
also a daycare teacher. Nagtuturo po ako formerly sa college. Then, we decided to build a daycare center. Home-based lang naman po siya. And I'm a volunteer teacher din po. Same time, nag-tutor din po ako. So,
Okay.
it's not enough po sa aming finances kasi college na yung anak ko nung panganay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I tried to help my husband. Kaya po, I decided to build a school supplies and store dito po sa bahay namin. So,
Yes.
since that time, medyo ano pa rin po kasi college is very hard na magpaaral sa bata, lalo na po ngayon. Pero, we always talk po sa ganyang situation, sa ganyang bagay. Kasi po, we always have a communication every day para po,
Mm-hmm.
kasi yun ang isa sa part ng being a OFW family na mawalang homesick ng isang OFW. So,
Yes.
we always talk about the different kind of situation na nangyayari sa pamilya namin, and same time sa children's po, sa mga anak ko, mostly anak ko po nakakausap ng husband ko kaysa ako. In one day, always po siya tumatawag. So, yun
Okay.
po. Then, until po nung 2018, I start to build a small business lang po dito sa amin. School supplies and stores nga po. Then, meron po kaming bigasan din, installment fee
Mm-hmm.
nga po sa bigasan ko. So, yun, hindi pa rin po alam ng husband ko na naglagay ako ng business nun kasi ayaw po niya. Eh, he wanted to
Yes.
stop my teaching career kasi nga po, alam niya napapagod ako. Yun. Pero
Mm-hmm.
hindi ko naman gano'n sasabi. Kaya lang po, syempre, we need to help din naman po sa husband. And
Okay.
hindi rin naman po ako sanay din na nagdidepende lang dun sa financial na nanggagaling sa kanya about sa salary. So, sanay din
Okay.
po kasi ako noon pa na may sarili akong income. So,
Yeah.
yun, hindi rin
So,
po niya alam na may business kami. Nalaman na lang po niya
okay.
yung maliit ko, doon na lang nalaman na may business kami, small business. So, yun
So
po.
let me just briefly translate what Arlene has shared with us. Tama ba? Arlene has been married for 21 years, right, Arlene? And
Opo.
she said that even before they were married, the husband was already working abroad. So they have two children. One of them is already college age. And Arlene has actually established a home-based business, selling school supplies, and then also selling rice. And she said that actually her husband did not know about this business um, business activities because he would prefer Arlene to, I guess, have a more relaxed life. But Arlene said that she's not used to, not doing anything else. And of course, for her, it's also good to have additional source of income. No? So
Yeah.
Arlene, kumusta naman? How was it? How has COVID affected the work of your husband? Nagkaroon ba siya ng problema because COVID-19 entered the picture?
Yung start pa lang po nung COVID na ano dito sa atin sa Pilipinas, medyo marami na. Pero sa kanila po sa Damam, hindi pa naman po gaano affected. So, parang late po sa kanila. So, may work pa rin po sila ng mga February or before mga kalagitnaan po ng March. Pero nung time na po, nagsabi siya sa akin na merong infected nga pong nurse and doctors doon. Kasi po yung hospital nila is parang sa a public hospital po doon. Parang dito po sa atin is PGH. So, unting-unting
Mm,
dumadami, pero hiwalay yung building nila. Kaya lang, in part of the job po niya, napupunta siya
mm,
din doon sa
of
mismong
course,
main
yeah.
hospital. Kasi technician nga po. So I'm worried that kasi po, syempre kahit paano, hindi lang naman po siya yung umiikot doon. So kahit paano, medyo kinakabahan din. And with prayer na rin po na maging safe siya doon. Kasi delikado nga po, isa siya sa umiikot. Ika nga po, frontliner din. So yan,
Yes.
tapos po, and that time, medyo dumadami na. Until na nagsabi po siya na hindi na sila pinapapasok. Former pumapasok pa sila, pero yung mga ibang lahi, ibang mga Arab and ibang Indian doon, hindi na pumapasok. Silang mga Filipino ang pumapasok sa work. Until ng 2 weeks, pina-stop na po sila sa totally lockdown. So yun po, medyo hard po sa kanila yon kasi any supplies na dumadating sa kanila po ay wala, pati po yung sa food. Until na nagsabi po siya na merong tumutulong na sa kanilang nag-deliver ng mga relief goods nila like polo. Yan. So, after po noon, siguro mga more than 2 months din sila na nasundan pa ng Ramadan. Yun, medyo nag-lockdown pa rin po sila din.
Okay, yes. But thankfully your husband is in good health, no? Even if the hospital that he's working in has received COVID cases. So I think what Arlene has shared with us is that her husband was able to continue work. And actually, she was quite concerned because as a maintenance person, her husband has to go around the different buildings in the hospital. And she was concerned that he might get sick. There was a time that other workers in the hospital were not allowed to work anymore, but Filipino workers continued to work. Tama, no? That's what you said. And they experienced a lockdown because the number of COVID cases increased. And during the lockdown, that was quite problematic because her husband and his other colleagues did not have access to food. But thankfully, the Philippine Overseas Labor Office provided some food packs for them. Okay, and of course the Ramadan also came, so that also introduced some difficulties as well. I would just like to ask, naapektuhan po ba yung pagpapadala niya ng pera? What about in terms of remittances? Has he been able to continue sending you financial support? Or because they were locked down?
Opo, may month po siya na hindi nakapagpadala. Opo, kaya nga kasi nga po totally lockdown doon, tapos lockdown din dito. So yun. So thanks nga na rin kahit paano po may savings kami. So yun po yung nagiging source of income namin, tapos yun dito nga po sa stores namin yon. And lucky din po, siguro yung sa lockdown na yun, yung mga fees sa schools ng mga bata is stop din. Hindi naman po, pati po expenses yun, hindi rin po na forced to pay naman yun.
Because I think in the situation, I guess the case of Arlene and her family, they're quite fortunate that the husband continues to work abroad. But there was also some problems encountered, even the sending of money because of the lockdown situation in Saudi Arabia. So they also had some challenges in meeting their needs. But luckily, because Arlene is very entrepreneurial, right? You have various businesses going on. You were able to manage somehow. Would that be correct, Arlene? Yes. And actually, you also started an online business, right?
Yeah, opo.
Can you tell us about that?
Yung start po ng nag-lockdown kasi meron na naman po akong mga supplies dito, mga snacks on tube, tapos mga personal hygiene, yung mga mask, yan, tapos yung rice. So, ay nag-isip po ko na, total naman, yun ay start ng online na rin business. So, I start na rin pong ipasok yun, online yun. So, luckily naman po, kahit paano, nagiging nagiging masyadong, mabili din naman po. Kaya lang, one way of to deliver is hindi po gaanong madali kasi nga maraming mga lockdown areas. So, yung po medyo kaya ang ginagawa ko lang naman po is to drop by sa isang area or kaya to pick up o kaya to deliver na lang by rider. Pero continue pa rin po yung sideline na nga po namin. Kahit paano po, additional income din po sa amin.
Okay. So just to briefly translate as well, Arlene also introduced an innovation in her business in that she also made the supplies, rice, and also different kinds of snacks available online so that, instead of waiting for customers to to come to her place, then she's also able to provide some goods, making use of some delivery services, and sometimes also, I think what you would call a meetups, right, in certain places. Okay. Siguro last question, Arlene. Ano yung parang plano ninyo ng husband ninyo? What have you and your husband discussed about future plans? Is he going to stay there for a few more years, or what have you thought about, no? Especially with what has happened now?
Opo. Actually po na pag-usapan na namin noon pa po 'yon. So he decided na until na retirement age na lang po niya, 6 years old. So actually po kung retirement na niya po 'yon, yung eldest son ko po ay seafarers din, seaman din na po kinukuha ngayon. So maybe tapos na rin po siya. So medyo okay na po yung stable na yung life namin, yung financial namin. Kaya lang by this time po, hindi po natin masasabi. Kasi
Okay.
actually tinatanong ko rin po siya nung etong last day, kahit po nung yesterday lang, tinanong ko ano yung way ng ano niya dyan. Kasi po may mga kasama din rin siyang nakauwi dito. So okay pa naman po sila. So we don't know kung hanggang kailan po sila mag-stay doon. Pero we accepted na lang po kahit anong mangyari. Basta safe lang pong makabalik dito. Yun po.
Okay.
With prayer na rin po.
All right. So your plan is still, if he can continue to work there, he will continue to work in Saudi Arabia. Is that correct?
Opo. Yes.
And hopefully, yes. So what Arlene was saying is that hopefully their college age son, who's actually taking up BS Marine Engineering or Marine Transportation, yeah,
Marine
who's,
transportation po.
marine transportation. So he wants to be a seafarer someday. No?
Yes.
So hopefully, by then, he would be able to graduate. Anong year na siya ngayon? What year is he?
Second year na po siya.
Okay.
Etong year na to, kaya lang, yun nga, medyo na-adjust ulit.
Okay, yeah. So the son is in second year, so that means another, I mean, if the school year will be followed and things will proceed with the online arrangements, I guess that would be another 2 to 3 years,
Opo, yun po.
right?
Yes,
Okay,
opo.
sige. Thanks a lot, Arlene.
Thanks
Okay, so
po. Thank you
we
po.
will have another chat and another round later. So this time I'd like to call on Miss Reby Monteron. Miss Reby. Yeah, Monteron Dumipig. Okay, Miss
Yeah.
Reby Monteron Dumipig. So, yes, Reby, magandang hapon. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Yes. Can you also tell us something about yourself and your family and what happened to your husband's plans?
Yes. I'm married for my husband who is a seafarer for over 25 years. We have only one son who is also a seafarer. And luckily, he's also booked in lockdown, but fortunately able to be on board last June 8th. So, and he's and presently, I'm working as a realtor, licensed real estate broker, and and I'm also last year. Then we built our salon and our beauty spacer that really get affected by this lockdown. So
Okay.
and I've been doing my native bags business for 4 years now. So I have no problem with that because it is still going on, and actually it's the one that supported us now.
Okay.
So
That's good. Yeah, thanks. So your son is also working now. Did I hear
yes,
you correctly?
yes,
He's also a
as a
seafarer and
seafarer,
he left
yes,
last June 8th.
just
Tama ba?
June 8th, yes. So
Okay, yes. But your husband, when was
my
when
husband, yeah, my husband kasi when after he arrived here in the Philippines last year pa. In fact, 1 year na siya. This July 17, no? And but mo, at present kasi we are focusing on in agri business. So we bought the 7 hectares lot in Negros Occidental, and last 2018 we planted it by coconut, but but in our mind to intercrop it with cacao. So last
okay.
year, my husband, when he arrived here, he went there last September, and then and then completed the planting of the cacao last January this year. And then when he come back, he reported from his agency, and then just signed the contract last March 12 and done his medical. But yun nga, and tentatively scheduled to have applied on March 18.
Mm.
So, yun na. But he able to really not able to make it because of the lockdown na on March
Okay.
18.
Yeah.
Ako.
Okay, but he has been here for some time already. So,
Yes, so
how did that affect your plans? Nagkaroon
a
ba kayo
lot.
ng difficulties because
Yes,
he was not? Yeah,
yes,
go ahead.
we really have we really have a lot of difficulties because as you it's last year parang we really into a lot of opening a lot of businesses, and then
Mm.
our savings will be
Okay.
drained, and then
Yeah.
in fact nga our cacao is there's still parang 2 hectares pa remaining unplanted, no? So
Mm-mm.
we are hoping na when he get on board on March 18, I could really proceed,
Mm.
no? And then, in fact, our bed spacer, kasi I rented parang an space for my shop sana, for my bag, but because it's very spacious, we decided to parang to rent it as a bed spacer. We have a 12 bed spacers. So it's giving us earning, no, and uh, but because of the lockdown, there's only I think six na lang that retain to
Mm.
us. So and then some are we are not collecting rent because they don't have work, and then they just
Mm.
go in their provinces after the lockdown, after the
Yes.
GCQ, no, and
Yeah.
then the salon, I don't want to open it because
Mm.
I really afraid, no, no COVID. I really don't have plan to open it until siguro January pa, or until the vaccine, or
Mm.
the case of COVID will really not this kind of serious. So
Yes.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
we have a lot of plans na parang it's untimely na it happened. So
Mm.
but my husband is really plan. We have this agreement na as soon as our cacao will bear fruits, that's the time that he will stop. That's parang mga 3 years from now. My husband
Mm.
is 52 years old. So by the time mga 55, we see him na completely retired na, and then
Mm.
because he loves agriculture business, because that's what his parents parang support their livings during this their childhood, so he's so familiar with that, and he loved
Yeah.
farming. So that's
Okay.
why we decided now it's okay, we put an investment, something that work that you will enjoy when you retire.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
parang it's not we are not really prepared for this. And it's good thing lang that I get surprised. I thought my bag will get affected. But I get surprised that the more
Mm.
parang it's more of maybe because a lot of online business are going
Mm.
on now. So
Mm.
I get surprised from all over other countries. They are ordering bags from me. And it's good thing
Mm.
na yung mga courier, like mga freight forwarders, didn't stop the service, so I can
Mm.
able to really transport the goods to them.
Mm.
So
Mm.
this is the one that really now um, supply our needs, no, but
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
enough, no, to really save for to really continue our business
Yes.
plan, investment plan
Yes.
for our
Yeah.
retirement.
Oo,
So
grabe palang nangyari sa inyo, Remy, no? It's very interesting because actually you made different plans and you already started implementing some of those plans, right? Like the cacao farming, and then you have the salon, the beauty salon, and then also what's the other thing? Beauty salon and then also the part of it is the bed space business, right?
yes, okay,
So actually, kung hindi dumating yung COVID, if COVID did not happen, you would be
yeah,
in a very good place, right?
yes,
Because then
yes,
those businesses would be running. But also thankfully, your bag business is the one that is also showing some promise now. No?
yes. So it's
So
really
may
backing up on now. Oh,
Yes, yeah. Kasi syempre wala kayong remittances din, 'di ba? Because your
Yes.
husband also returned more than about a year ago. No?
Mm-mm.
So you were actually and you were investing.
Yes. Mm-mm.
You were
So all our
investing.
money is really out.
Yes. And then some of the hope for or expected incomes did not come about because
Mm-mm.
of COVID, no? Kasi if plans worked out well, you could have the salon business could have been running already by this time.
Yes.
No?
Mm-mm.
Yes. But nonetheless, how did you adjust to like a situation your husband has been here for quite some time? Because normally among seafaring families, usually the husband can only stay for 1 or 2 months, and then even part of that time would have to be spent attending various training programs. So you were together with your husband for quite some time, and then remittances were not coming. How did you adjust to the whole situation?
Because me naman, me and my husband really have this um, as far as our expenses, we really have this financial um, agreement talaga that we will not spend if it is not necessary. We just bought what is essential, and we are practicing this yung 20% investment out of the and then 10% tithings. We are really, really much believe on that. And
Mhm.
I think with the COVID, we always put our hope in God that He's a better have plan for us. And
Mhm.
I'm not then worried with He stay
Mhm.
here maybe because God is protecting you from the COVID. That's the and you know we don't know, but we are all hoping that it is for the better things, no, and
Okay.
for our income that it's a really big um a lot of yung
Adjustment.
monthly remittances is really affecting us so much because out of
Okay.
it we have a really big portion on our investment because we don't
Mhm.
have much expenses now because our son is already earning then at his own. So far we are not renting home, so most of the more than 50% of his remittances is really goes to the investment.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
think that's the one that really get affected. Parang
Mhm.
how we able to really are we going to really make meet pa rin our plans? Are we really have
Mm.
executed pa all our
Mm.
whatever dreams that we have for
Mm.
our retirements?
Mhm. Yeah. So, but he is leaving soon. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
even.
Just
When is he
waiting.
scheduled to? When is
Um,
he scheduled to leave?
before end of this month. Before this
Okay.
end of this month.
So both your husband and your son will be out at sea, and
Yes,
hopefully they
yes,
will be okay, and you can continue to build on your plans for the future, right?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Thanks very much, Rebby. Yes. So
Thank you.
thank
Welcome.
you. Yes. And then at this point, I think we can have the video clip of Ellen. I think I have introduced her already earlier. So, Dax, maybe we can show Ellen's video clip.
Okay. Hang on, hang on. Oh no. Audio. Oh, okay. One more time.
Noong una akong nag-decide na umuwi is uncertain din ako sa aking mga desisyon dahil una natatakot ako dahil after away for so many years, ano mangyayari sa akin? Employable pa ba ako or hindi na? Pero naisip ko talaga na kung anuhin ko lang yung takot, walang mangyayari sa akin dahil syempre there's no forever sa abroad. Kaya nung umuwi talaga ako talagang nagiging hands-on situate, mag-look after mag-manage ng aking tinayong kabuhayan kasi ang nasa isip ko kasi is kahit mag-overtime ako na kagaya ng longer hours na ginagawa ko sa abroad, sa akin pa rin yung mag-credit. Whereas kung nagtatrabaho ako na may amo ako, ang credit noon kung magtrabaho ako na mag-overtime ako is sa kanila na. Kaya nga masarap para sa akin. Iba yung buhay na ikaw ang nangangamuhan kaysa ikaw na lang ang nagiging amo. Although parehong merong problema, pero at least kung ikaw ang amo, alam mo kung paano solusyonan yung problema. Pero kung may amo kang kinoconsider na na isipin tama kayang ginawa ko or hindi. Whereas kung ikaw ng amo, ikaw nang nagdi-decision sa kung anong gusto mong gawin. Tapos, ang naman is, kung nasa abroad ka pa lang, iniisip mo, paano kaya to? Mag-work kaya yung negosyo ko? Paano kung hindi mag-work? Ang advice ko naman sa mga sa mga questions na ganyan is, paano mo malalaman na hindi mag-work or mag-work kung hindi mo siya gagawin? Pero kung kung nandyan lang ako, kung nandoon pa rin ako sa abroad hanggang ngayon, hindi ko pala malalaman na kaya ko palang gawing magiging entrepreneur at saka since I was started kasi malayo na rin naman narating ko dahil nung una dito lang ako sa store na to, pero ngayon meron akong delivery morning and afternoon. Nung una is kung isang sako lang napapagawa ko mga tinapay, isang sakong harina, ngayon nakaka-anim na ako sa isang araw yata. So, number of bread naman na po-produce every day is, kung noon, mga hundreds lang, ngayon mga thousands sa packs of bread a day na ang napoproduce. Kaya, depende sa iyo talaga. Kung gusto mong mag-succeed, huwag kang mag-give up. Kasi ako, mga struggles ko marami rin. Kaya nga lang, ginawa ko yung inspirasyon para mag-succeed sa aking gustong gawin. So, gusto ipakita sa inyo yung aking ginagawa ng tinapay. Pero siguro sa ngayon is since umaga pa lang ay hindi pa maraming naluluto. Kaya okay, tara tingnan natin doon sa loob kung ano. So, eto sila tinapay, hindi ko alam kung anong tinapay. Palaman pala ang ginagawa nila. Ito sila mga morning shift. So, complete sila with uniform and everything dahil, ngayon, pandemic ngayon, kaya kailangan complete headgear sila. Tapos, ito yung dalawang oven at saka ito yung yung mga tinapay na nagagawa nila pero hindi pa yan fully kasi bago pa lang sila nag-start. Ang aking delivery naman is hindi pa dumating. So, from morning, ngayon sa tubungan sila, pero in the afternoon mamaya is may delivery na naman sila. So, kaya sila nagkakabol dahil Mamaya, anuin pa namin to, i-pack pa namin at saka dadalhin mag-delivery ulit. Okay, salamat!
Okay, so thanks very much. So that was Ellen, and actually, as you would also as you have heard also from Ellen, she also had to adjust to the situation during this pandemic. In the past, she just has the store, and I know she has told me before that she has a very good spot in their town because it's across from an elementary school. So they were making really good business. But because of the pandemic, she had to think of ways on how they can continue the production and, of course, also retain the number of employees and workers that she has now. And so they started to do deliveries, delivering breads and pastries to other neighboring villages, and that has actually expanded their business quite considerably. So that's the good news part of it. And also, it's very inspiring to know that Ellen, despite the many challenges that she has faced, she's also now an employer. She employs, I think, 5 people, plus she also has a driver that helps with the deliveries, and also a few extra staff and personnel to help with the packing of the breads. Okay, so thanks very much, Ellen, for your inspiring story. And now we turn to our other resource speakers. And first, let me introduce Dr. Lucy Jordan. Lucy, of course, is very familiar to those who have been following our webinar series. Lucy is co-principal investigator of the Child Health and Migrant Parents in Southeast Asia project, or CHAMPC, and that is actually our common experience. No? So if CHAMPC has been around for more than 10 years, that's how long we have known each other as well. And we continue to be friends despite being in the same project for a very long time. So Lucy is associate professor at the University of Hong Kong. She's also Associate Dean for Undergraduate in Social Work at the same university. Her research focuses on migration, families, and well-being, field-based research, capacity building of nonprofit organizations, and policy development. From the private sector part, I'd like to introduce Ms. Cherry Joy Veniles. Cheng. Cheng was formerly Shared Services Center Manager of Seek Asia, which combines 2 huge job portals, JobsDB and JobStreet. Her work in Seek Asia has given her deep and rich insights into the future of work in the region. Previously, she headed the Policy Planning and Research Division of the Commission on Filipinos Overseas. No? So actually, that's where I met Cheng many years ago. And she also had a stint as contributing writer for Vera Files, Yahoo News, and the Philippine Daily Inquirer. Cheng's life has also been affected by the pandemic. She actually recently resigned from Seek Asia so that she could review for the bar exams. But the bar exams has been postponed, so we don't know yet when it's going to be held. But as you can see, she is managing the change quite well. No? And finally, from the government side, we'd like to welcome Mr. Ruel B. Martin, Officer in Charge Director of the National Reintegration Center for OFWs. NRCO is an attached office of the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration. His main responsibility is to oversee the development of programs and services towards the productive reintegration of OFWs. So we anticipate a lot of questions to be thrown Director Ruel's way later on. He has been invited to numerous conferences, both here and abroad, as a resource person on migration and development and return and reintegration. Recently, he participated in the technical working group, which developed the ASEAN guidelines on effective return and reintegration. But I think that was before COVID-19, no? Right, Director Ruel? So I think there needs to be a sequel, no? What will happen to return and reintegration during these very challenging times? Okay, so first let me turn to Lucy. Lucy, with the various sharings of our earlier speakers, were there things there that resonated with some of the findings from CHAMPC and maybe from your other experience?
Thank you, Marla. Thanks for the question. And thank you to all of the people who've already shared. It was so interesting. And yes, there was a lot of resonance actually with things. One of the themes that stood out to me was, again, this idea about kind of return which is more planned and return which is more sudden. And the fact that, in the stories of the different people that have shared with us, we've heard a bit of both. And, we've also heard about the kind of need to be very flexible and kind of resilient when things happen, especially when not, the return has not been planned. And one of the things that I also felt I hadn't actually reflected on until I heard the stories was this importance about the skills that people have even already before they go, on the migration, and the idea about those that have maybe other skills, more diverse skills, may be better positioned to deal with the shock, a sudden shock like the COVID-19 pandemic is. And it just makes me think again about the first part of the educational experience up through college and university, and how important that is in origin countries to prepare people for whatever type of career path that they may have.
Okay. Yes. So it's also quite interesting. I think maybe you can remember also from the CHAMSI findings, particularly the comparative comparison with the other countries. I think in the CHAMSI findings, would it be correct, Lucy, that compared with the other migrant workers from, no, that's not the one. Compared with the other migrant workers from Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam, there's a tendency for Filipino workers to stay abroad longer, right?
Yes, definitely. So in our comparative study, that was one of the things that did stand out to me, is that the Philippines migrants have a tendency to stay away for longer periods and longer kind of overall, so kind of the longer over the lifetime. And and especially it was quite notable in difference with the migrant men from the Philippines, because in say the Indonesia, the migrant women had somewhat similar patterns to the women in the Philippines, but our migrant men had these longer stints, so which we've heard about from our stories here as well, about the seafarers, the technicians on the ships, the technicians in the medical facility in Saudi Arabia. Yes, so exactly. But also there was some of our return. There's one story that had stood out to me in particular, which was a planned return, which was a family of actually both of the mother and the father had been away at some point, and that they ultimately decided to reunite at home and to go back into agriculture. And into a family agricultural legacy, which reminded me when we were listening to, I think, to Rebbe sharing about talking about the farming. And so, I think, but again, what stood out there in that case was to me the fact that it was a planned return, so it kind of, it was something that happened a bit over a gradual period. But there was this recognition that actually certain things about the quality of life, were perhaps better for them with making that kind of a change after a period of time being abroad.
Yes, thanks very much. So actually, just to plug also our final webinar next week, it is actually going to focus on agriculture. No?
Definitely,
so,
which is really interesting.
Yes, and indeed, actually, even among our speakers this afternoon, Pam has the shortest work experience abroad, but short is still about 10 years. And then the others, they have already chalked some 20 years of working abroad, including Ellen, who I remember worked for 26 years abroad, most of it in Singapore. Okay, thanks, Lucy.
Thanks so much, Marla.
Yes, and now I turn to Cheng. So we try to get some insights from Cheng, especially from the perspective of a human resources specialist. So actually, Cheng, if I may ask, from what are the bright spots in the current landscape, if there's any? Because we're looking for signs of hope. I mean, especially for people who had been displaced from abroad and then they come back to the Philippines, are there possibilities for local employment, no? Considering that there are actually a certain proportion of repatriated workers who are considering local employment as well. So,
Yes. Thank you, Miss Marla, for your very kind introduction. But actually, when you look closely at the Philippines, you will see that in fact the bright spot is actually within its people. So if you could just flash the screen, if you look at the job portal job street, for example, when you look at this particular job portal, you will see that in fact in slide 3 of my there's slide 3. Okay. So you will see that there has been quite an increase in the number of ads looking for customer service representatives.
one moment,
Uh,
Cheng, one moment. We have to wait for the PPT. Maybe we'll just remind slide.
yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay,
Yes.
go
Okay.
ahead.
So when we started with the COVID-19 pandemic, there was quite a dip in the number of people trying to find jobs
Mhm.
in the Philippines, as well as people who were posting for ads. But if you look at this number, for example, in the Philippines, when we started the ECQ in March, the numbers deep down to 25%. For one, we didn't have a solid internet connectivity at home. People didn't know
Mhm.
how to go out for interviews and things like that. But you look at the other countries in Asia, like Hong Kong and Thailand and Malaysia and even Indonesia, you will see that a lot of them actually tried to find jobs while they were at home and looking for part-time jobs at that. In the Philippines, it was a different scenario. But when we
Mhm.
moved into May of this year, there
Mhm.
was quite a number of ads posted for call center and IT agents. And then after, you will also see that in fact, there has been a massive increase in the number of government ads that are posted online. So a lot of people now have the time to actually go online, find jobs, and the behavior for many Filipinos is that they're trying to find part-time, work from home types of jobs. It's not actually, if you look at these numbers, it's not really a downturn. It's more of quite a pause, but they are still hiring. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of people trying to set up their work from home arrangements. Can we go to the next slide, please? Right. So in this particular slide, you will see that the most number of jobs that are available at the moment would be for call center agents. And then you have a big opportunity for teachers. And this is because there is now what we call as blended learning. And a lot of the teachers that are employed in many schools, in fact, do not have the capacity to get into the online mode of teaching. So those of you who are coming from abroad who may have experience doing that in the past or from where you came from, this is also an opportunity for you. Of course, you still have nurses and then engineers and, as I mentioned earlier, customer service representatives. For government, there are a lot of opportunities for encoders and admin assistants. I think there was a dip in terms of sales, especially for retail. But as you can see here, there is still consistent about 2% of jobs shares are actually for sales openings. Can we move on to the next slide? All right. So in the next slide, I'll show you where the jobs are in the Philippines. So if you look at the Philippine scenario, the ones that are really hiring are the ones in the Calabar zone. So because this is where PESA is, Central Luzon, Central Visayas, you don't see NCR there, mostly because we have been a bit constrained in terms of transportation. But there are jobs. It's just us trying to find the jobs that are fit for us. If you look at the word, actually, Miss Marla, the word Hanap-buhay is actually a combination of two things, right? Hanap, which is find, and buhay, which is life. So for Filipinos, Hanap-buhay is actually finding the life that actually would make them happy. So it's very important for people to consider that as an important consideration when they're looking for jobs. For many people who have been repatriated, another option actually for them is to still be looking out for jobs overseas. Sabi nga ninyo kanina, there were some people who mentioned that in many instances, Filipinos are the ones who stay overseas for the longest time. So on the average, you'd have people who have been working overseas for 10, 15, 20 years. And if you look at the number of job postings that are available on the Work Abroad website, you will see that, next slide please. So with countries with overseas job postings, you will see countries such as Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Australia, Singapore, Kuwait, the UAE, the USA, UK, and Oman. So those are still the countries where there are job postings, but because there are travel restrictions, you will not be able to leave as easily. So that's a consideration that we would have to consider. Alright. So, I think importanteng tignan natin, what do employers actually look for? If you're a Filipino employer, it's very important to consider the fact that there are 5 areas where employers would be rating you. So, when you go to an interview, they have this sheet of paper. Actually, what they're rating you for would be 5 items. So, first, your technical ability. This is exactly why they're trying to hire you. Why do they need you for something? Because it's your knowledge and expertise. And for a lot of returning OFWs, they have this. It's just a matter of packaging this so that the people that are the hiring managers are able to see through the kind of knowledge, the accumulated knowledge that you have, and the expertise that you have because you have worked abroad. In many instances, the processes abroad are actually far advanced than the processes here. And it's important for you to be able to connect with the hiring manager and let them know the added plus, the added value of them hiring you. The second one is leadership skills. Obviously, this is your ability to make sure that people are working together and you are able to oversee processes and guide initiatives so that you can make sure that the company, because of your leadership, would still be able to achieve their goals. And then this is very important, your interpersonal and team skills. These are the things that a Filipino employer would be looking for. Your communication skill is a must. So it's not important that you know perfect English because sometimes that's the idea for many Filipinos. It's more important that you're able to listen and you're able to come across as an effective speaker. So it also means to say that when you work with teams, it would also mean that you're able to control and manage your emotions when you are dealing with other people. And then obviously, I think ito dapat tignan natin from the point of view of those who are applying online at this point. Your presentation skill is absolutely important now because a lot of hirers are taking their recruitment online. So a lot of them would be interviewing you online on Skype, on Zoom, or probably even on StreamYard. And in those cases, it's important for them to see that you have a certain degree of clarity. You're able to engage your recruiter or your audience if as much as you can. And then more importantly, although it's at the bottom of that list, they will want to see that you have organizational citizenship. Meaning to say, do you have initiative? So they're looking at people who are able to look at opportunities and able to take control and be able to say, okay, this is something that we can do. I've seen this done overseas. This is something that can translate very well into the processes in the Philippines. So that's something that a lot of those who are returning OFWs should be able to consider. Next slide, please. Alright, so ano yung kailangan po natin gawin? If you are a Filipino who has been repatriated and you're looking for a job in the Philippines, the must-dos that you have to consider would be, one, you have to stay focused. A lot of people spend so much time just looking at opportunities, figuring out what happened, or probably blaming COVID or or what happened to them overseas. But you need to stay focused and figure out what you need to do. I think Pam and Miss Rebby and Miss Arlene were able to show us how staying focused can help in terms of making sure that there is enough economic opportunities for families with Filipinos overseas. Second, you need to write a strong, simple, and concise resume. With all of the experiences that you've had abroad, you have to take that into consideration, write down a very strong and a very short resume, make sure that your strengths are highlighted, and then you have to review so that you're able to answer tough interview questions. Siguro, the thing that we have to consider as well is how you should prepare for an online interview. because obviously because of the limited transportation that we have right now in Manila, everything goes online. You have to make sure that you have the internet connection, the equipment that you need for an online interview, and things like that. And then if you can and when you can, it's not necessarily 100% a requirement, but a lot of our HR personnel now are looking at your social media presence. A lot of them are looking at it because you're trying to assess if you would have cultural fit into their companies. And then one of the things that they would normally ask you is your capacity for a work from home arrangement. Kaya ba ng internet mo kung ganito kadami ang calls na matatanggap mo? Things like that. Those are important things to consider. And then obviously, you will have to make sure that you have your latest health report. Your latest health report is already a requirement in many companies now. If you go to the other websites, you can actually, in your profile, you can actually use the hashtag work now in your online profile so that your companies, the companies that are hiring, would prioritize you in terms of other applicants or applying online. And then make sure that you're always on the lookout for online job fairs. In August, there will be an online job fair for call center agents. In September, there will be an online job fair for government openings. So those are opportunities that we should be able to look at. So next slide, please. Now, it's another story if you think that working abroad is better for you. And if this is something that's very important for you, you have to consider the fact that one, you have the inquiry with your recruitment agency. Keep that relationship hot, meaning you're able to talk to them and ask them for any job opportunities or timelines that you would be looking at before your company will open up again. Second, you have to network with your connections, your bosses, your former office mates, other friends that you may have met while you were working abroad, because they will give you information and inputs in order for you to apply online. And then you have to reframe your mindset and get retooled in new skills. Some of you, I think, in the earlier part of the discussion, Miss Ellen mentioned that while she has been working overseas for the longest time, when she came back, she had to put up that business for bakery, and it was not exactly the skill that she had when she went overseas. And then be prepared for the long haul because of travel restrictions. So it's important to consider, do you have enough savings to tide you over? Secondly, once you know the timeline for certain countries to open up or when the travel restrictions would be lifted, it would be important for you to also plot out. There are many opportunities for you to do online work. So yung mga tinatawag po nila na online tutor, English tutor, there are many opportunities for that. Encoder stuff, you can also do that and you can apply for those jobs online. If and when your option is only to stay here for a short period of time. When you look at this pandemic, it has affected us in so many different ways. But I guess when you look at it closely, can you go to the last slide, please? If you look at it very closely, only two things can happen after this pandemic. Either we go back to what used to be normal, or we fast forward into the future. But what's very important and at the core of it all is the fact that as Filipinos or as returning OFWs, the most important thing for us is to remain hopeful, because that's what is important when we're trying to hanap, when we are trying to looking for the life that we actually want for ourselves. Thank you.
Cheng, thank you very much. I think you have a very good future as a life coach.
Thank you, Miss Marla.
But actually, Cheng, you gave really a lot of very useful information, including that practical information about online job fairs that will be taking place in August and September. So August is for call center types of jobs, whereas September is for government jobs, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually,
And
Miss Marla, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Sorry. I think for returning OFWs, there has to be some sort of a series where they're being taught how to reframe their resumes. Because a lot of it is really, they're just looking at the stuff that they did, but it doesn't add value. So those things are important when they're trying to apply for local work.
Yes. Would you be available for consultation for that?
Let's see.
That's an online opportunity for you. No, but it makes a lot of sense, no, because part of it is also how to present yourself, and as you pointed out, a lot of things now are being negotiated online, and so it's important to not only to give a right impression, no, but also to have basis for the for that particular impression, because authenticity will still count, no, in the long run. It's still going to be very important. But I'd also just like to mention a few things, no, because I actually asked Mr. Lito Soriano, who's president and chairman of the board of LBS Recruitment Solutions Corporation. So he has a recruitment agency, and actually his agency is one of those that do not charge recruitment fees. No? And I asked him about possibilities for overseas employment, and at least based on their particular experience, they said that they were supposed to deploy some 300 newly hired workers, but because of travel restrictions, they have not been able to do a lot of deployments since March of this year. And I think he also pointed out what you had pointed out earlier about travel restrictions. No, like for example, in the case of Taiwan, Taiwan actually continues to hire migrant workers, but they also impose mandatory PCR testing in Manila before the flight to Taiwan. So health protocols are also in place. And among others, he also mentioned that Japan actually continues to ban or does not allow travelers and workers from the Philippines because of high cases of COVID here. So actually, our record as a country of having X number of COVID cases also affects the employability of our
Yes.
overseas Filipino workers. Okay, so thanks very much, Cheng. We'll have another round later. Finally, I'd like to invite Director Ruel Martin from NRCO to share with us the programs, no, that
Yes,
NRCO has to offer. Ruel, you have the floor. Thank you.
yes, ma'am. Doc Marla, good afternoon. Good afternoon to all. Thank you for inviting the NRCO so that we'll be able to uh, provide the existing programs and services being offered by our government, particularly the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration and our center, the National Reintegration Center for OFWs. So basically, essentially, we have a reintegration framework that we follow right now in view of the global pandemic, the COVID-19. We need to address first the welfare concerns of our returning overseas Filipinos. So basically, for the past more than almost 3 months, we provide welfare services to our overseas Filipinos, uh, particularly in swab testing, in repatriation, of course, transportation and food needs of our returning OFWs. And the center, or the National Reintegration Center for OFWs, uh, after all of our returning Filipinos will be eventually be reunited with their families in their provinces, then it's about time for us to provide programs and services related to reintegration. So essentially, I have a brief presentation. We have programs for livelihood, trainings, likewise, as well as employment facilitation. So the first slide, we have existing livelihood programs. Next slide, please. Okay, these are livelihood programs being offered to our returning overseas Filipinos, uh, particularly distressed women, OFWs. So livelihood intervention is being to them, as well as skills training. So basically, we have only 3 requirements so that we'll be able to comply it immediately: copy of passport, the NRCO form, and of course, a certification that they have attended a financial awareness seminar, or FAST SBMT. They need not go here in Manila. So our programs and services are being offered in the 17 regional regions. So we have 17 regional welfare offices and we have reintegration officers handling programs and services for our OFWs. Another program is the next. This is likewise a livelihood intervention similar to the Balik Pinay, Balik Hanap-buhay, but it can cater to our male distressed OFWs. Same requirement and same process in applying. They need to contact the reintegration officers in our regional offices. Okay. The next slide would discuss about an employment facilitation, particularly to our licensed teachers who are working abroad, either domestic worker or any other field of profession. So we have a collaboration with the Department of Education for the granting of permanent plantilla items for our licensed OFWs, those who have passed the licensure examinations abroad or already licensed teachers but went abroad to look for other jobs. They can finally come home. All they have to do is to apply online, even if they have not yet finished their contract, and we will process their applications while they are still working there. And eventually, if the Department of Education will approve their application, then that's the time that we will contact them and assist them in coming home and complying the other requirements that they need to submit to the Department of Education. Okay. Well, this is a new program because we have already what we call the Oasis. This is a internet-based online system being that was developed by OWA and now being implemented for returning overseas Filipinos, particularly those who have been affected by the COVID-19. So our returning overseas Filipinos need to enroll in the Oasis platform so that they will be able to capture their personal information, of course, their skill set, their occupation of the region that they belong, and other particulars, so that we'll be able to add them or their names in the list of returning OFWs, so that we'll be able to process it and be able to facilitate local employment to some of our private companies. We have started this, but even prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, we already started this program, and referrals have been made to our Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or TESDA, for skills upgrading or skills retooling. And eventually, they are also being referred to other private companies. And we likewise tap the existing employment opportunities under the Build program with infrastructure, big infrastructure companies that are into this business. So we provide pertinent information related to the skill set of our returning OFWs so that they will be shortlisted and eventually be provided with employment opportunities here in the Philippines. Okay, the next slide would that is only the contact details of our office, including our email addresses and website, so that they will be able to reach us should they have a question about their reintegration assistance that they need by coming home here in the Philippines. I think that would be all, and thank you, Doc Marla.
I have a quick question, Direct Roel. Yes, because the programs that you mentioned, like the Balik Pinas and also the SPIMS, these are existing programs of the NRCO, right? So I was just wondering whether there are special programs that you are developing at the moment because of the exigencies of the pandemic. I was, yeah, because parang existing na siya eh, no?
Yes.
Meron pa kayang iba pa na iniisip yung NRCO to address the manifold situations of our repatriated workers?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Doc Marla. Actually, the OWA Board of Trustees have already met and is about to implement a cash assistance program similar to the Dole ACAP. But we all know the fact that the Dole ACAP has so many applicants, more or less around 500,000, but 200,000 have already been given the $200 cash assistance. But well, there are so many applicants still pending. I was informed that the evaluated applications is as of third week of April. So essentially, those who have applied starting May of this year have not evaluated because of the large number of applicants being processed. And there is also a question about the existing funds to be given. So it has already exhausted, and the DOLE, the Department of Labor and Employment, has already requested some additional funds for this. So OWA will likewise provide for cash assistance for its active members. And we also would want to implement the one-stop shop, but it's an online platform for integration. So basically, hopefully, we'll be able to launch this at the end of this month, so that well, it's a new normal that we say. There is a need for us to innovate and provide the services online, so that OFWs will just be able to access programs and services, including trainings, in a single platform, so that they'll be able to avail of other programs to be offered to them by OWA and RCO.
What that means is really the importance of registering with the OASIS database, right? And I also hope, Direct Ruel, that when you have the employment facilitation programs running, that you would also have some kind of a database, so that we will also have an idea about the kinds of jobs that people have been able to access and what other opportunities are available out there.
Yes, ma'am. In fact, in our template memorandum of understanding with other private companies, we have already included that as one of the provisions, so that we'll be able to assess and evaluate those referrals. We need to capture them, and we need to monitor also these returning OFWs.
What about links with the public employment service offices? Are there any discussions on particularly on the local employment facilitation part? No, are there links that have been made with the PESO, so that there could be better coordination?
Yes, ma'am. Well, this is under the PESO is under also the LGUs, and likewise the Bureau of Local Employment under ASEC Nikki, and she's part of the committee on local employment being undertaken by the Department of Labor. In the online platform, we likewise included the LGUs because they play a important role. So basically, we can map not just services being offered by national government agencies, but other stakeholders and NGOs, and of course the LGUs, so that our OFWs who will be returning to the provinces will be able to access and know the existing employment opportunities, or particular any livelihood opportunities being offered by their LGUs.
Okay, thank you very much. So thanks to all our speakers. And at this point, actually, I'd like to ask for the indulgence of our online participants if we can extend maybe for another 10 minutes so that we can try to address some of the questions that have been posted here. But what I'd also like to say is that if there are some questions that we are not able to discuss now, we'd like to assure you that we actually go back to those questions and give the responses to them. Yes, so the first question, this was emailed earlier. Um, I'll read it out. It says here, given limited opportunities in paid employment, both here and abroad, there is a tendency to encourage returning OFWs to consider entrepreneurship. However, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. What are the livelihood options then for repatriated OFWs until we come to a safer new normal? And actually, this is also in relation to a question, another question here. It goes, I wonder if there's a reason why entrepreneurship seems to be the main option that returnees face. How does time away affect people's employability? I wonder if Pam or the other speakers might want to comment on experiences of job hunting after they return. So that's from Dr. Yasmin Ortiga from the Singapore Management University. Maybe Pam, you'd like to answer briefly, or
Yes, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, I tried applying online for BPO company. Honestly, here in the Philippines, it's more like your educational attainment is very important. Not like when you're working abroad, it's your skills, the technicalities that they're after too. So when I applied on a BPO, yes, they will accommodate you, but as of now, as the pandemic hits, most of the call center agents are applying. So they have more job opportunities than me, who has never worked on a BPO company. So it's hard for me to apply for a new job again because of the educational attainment and of course the internet connections and all. That's why I'm having a hard time.
Okay. Yes. What about the comment that, entrepreneurship is not for everyone? So what could be the other options? Would like
Actually,
to.
for now, ma'am, for me, it's about how you can earn money as soon as possible. So
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship, yes, it can be for everybody, but you have to take chances. Eh. You cannot
Okay.
just sit down and think about other options. If you have that small money to start a new business, a small one, why not try, right? Then
Okay.
if it's profitable, you go continue this one, but you have to explore options. Even if
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't suit you for now, maybe you can adjust, right? Because
Okay.
it's a matter of survival, so you have to think fast which way you can earn money now, even if it's
Okay.
not that way. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much. Would the other resource speakers like to add to that? Maybe Cheng? Oops. Cheng, please unmute.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Actually, it's very important to consider because the question was on employability. If you left, how would that impact your employability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I go back to my earlier thesis that when people come back from overseas, they forget to package themselves and the knowledge and experiences that they got abroad. So it
Mm-hmm.
seems like they're starting from zero. But in fact, they have 10,000 inputs that they could present to a recruiter or to an employer. And so that when you add that up, it's supposed to improve the current processes for the employer. That's always been an issue even for me because even when we started to recruit for positions in my team, for example, in my previous team, the question was always people are unable to link their past jobs or the lack of it, for example, to the new job that's being offered to them. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
matter of perspective as well. It's a matter of packaging that and their experiences abroad and knowledge abroad so that employers will be able to appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's true that entrepreneurship is not for everyone, But when you come to think of it, and you have already figured out for yourself that in fact you want to have a full-time job, a lot of returning OFWs have trouble with salaries that are two times lower than what they used to get. So that's
Mm,
a recurring theme for a lot of returning OFWs. So when they
mm,
do decide and focus on local employment, that is also a reality that they have to also consider. When they do
mm.
that, it's a lot easier to adjust in their new workplaces. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think there's another question here. What are the implications for OFWs wanting to find work abroad in terms of health checks, contracts, waiting time, lockdown easing? Actually, I think we answered part of it. The
Yeah.
information coming from Mr. Lito Soriano earlier. But there's also a continuation. Any more details in connection to specific occupations or other examples in destination countries? Hmm. Anyone? Anyone would like to provide some insights on that?
What are the Oh, I think it was my question. Can you flash that? What are the implications for OFWs wanting to find work abroad?
In terms of health
Contracts,
check?
waiting, lockdown, any more details in connection with other destination countries? Okay. Actually, when you look at all the jobs that are posted for overseas, a lot of it is actually just for pooling. So people are posting jobs for overseas, but these are more for pooling rather than outright outright going out of the country
Mm,
already. So when you're looking at the lockdown, especially in the Philippines, as Miss Marla has mentioned earlier, a lot of the receiving countries are also very worried about receiving individuals coming from countries with high numbers of um, COVID cases. So for the Philippines, it is possible that international travel restrictions will be lifted towards the last part of the year rather than earlier. So that is
mhm.
something that we should also consider.
Okay. So I think we better wrap up. But before doing so, can I just have a final word from each one of our speakers, maybe beginning with Director Roel?
Yes, ma'am.
Final words, yes?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting our office to participate in this Migration Outlook webinar series. And
Mhm.
the government is doing its best to provide programs and services to our returning overseas Filipinos. We know that this is a trying time,
Mhm.
especially in terms of providing the services that our modern hero truly deserves. But with the help of the national government, the LGUs, other stakeholders, I think we can rise up to the challenge and we can rise as one. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. May I invite maybe Rebby for her final thoughts?
Just to OFW family, I just for a husband and wife to really come out with a very good financial planning and discipline, especially in spending the money. Because life is so uncertain,
Mm-mm.
and we have to just buy what is essential, and we are trying. Let's try to live a very simple life. Me and my
Okay.
husband, kasi we don't believe in buying uh, vehicle like that, the car, if it's not necessary, and then we don't go on so much travel like pressure travel. We're just setting up our financial retirement first, and
Okay.
then uh, work work now and play later on.
Okay.
That's
Thank you, Rebby. Can I invite also Arlene? Arlene, what are your final thoughts?
I guess. Thank you po kasi medyo choppy. So, for me po, to all of the OFW family, stay calm lang po and pray. Kasi if we have a communication in each other, then prayer nasa atin lahat with the God's guide, all problem and difficulties will will face is ma-solve lahat po, and God is always with us. So hard work and continue lang po sa pagtutulungan sa bawat pamilyang OFW.
Okay, so hard work and continuing cooperation between and among family members. Thank you, Arlene.
Thank you
Pam,
po.
thank you. Pam, may I invite you for
Yes,
your final
ma'am.
thought?
I want to thank you all po sa organizers ng webinar na to. I've learned so much po from this webinar. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Dr. Lucy?
Yeah, thank you, Marla, and thanks everybody for joining the webinar. And indeed, I mean, to me, I think what really stands out is just how important it is to listen to the voices of those who have shared similar experiences and, kind of shine the light a bit on what is possible despite the various adversities that are faced, because it seems to me that a lot of the solutions lie there. Thank you.
Salamat. Thanks, Lucy. And finally, Cheng.
No pre.
Final
Well,
words.
actually, when you think about the pandemic, you should look at it as a restart button. Even for people who are here and even the ones who are returning from overseas, it is a restart button. It's an opportunity for all of us to actually assess where we are at in terms of our work lives and then try to figure out how to move forward. That is exactly how we should, well, in a perfect world, that is exactly how we should look at it. But obviously, it's not the same for everybody. But please be hopeful. We will get through it. Sabi nga ni Direk Ruel, we will rise as one.
Thank you very much. And of course, my deepest thanks to all of you for all of your sharing. Thank you very much. And let's try to remain hopeful as well. So now I think I'd like to turn over the floor to Melissa for the closing. Thank you. Maraming salamat.
Yes, thank you, Doc Marla. On behalf of the University of Hong Kong, Scalabrini Migration Center, and the Episcopal Commission for Migrants and Itinerant People, I would like to express our gratitude to our resource persons, Ms. Pam, Ms. Arlene, Ms. Rebecca, Ms. Ellen, Dr. Lucy, Ms. Cheng, and Director Ruel. I'm sure many OFWs and their families feel less anxious and more enlightened on how to better address their financial situation. We would also like to thank our highly competent tech team, Justin, Dax, and Jim of Dream Agri Media, and to Kim and John Paul of SMC, who assisted with the preparations and technical needs. And thank you to our viewers who joined us and who also shared their comments and questions. To the questions we were unable to ask during the Q&A, we will answer them later in the comment section. We also have a recording of this webinar. It will be posted in the Facebook page of Scalabrini Migration Center. Please do share a few more minutes of your time to accomplish a feedback form. We will post the link in the comment section as well. So we hope to see you again in our fourth and last webinar next week. So that's on July 24, Friday, 3 to 4:30 p.m. We will discuss prospects in agriculture. We hope to see you all next week. Have a good weekend, and everyone, please stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.